Hi, I'm Matt Kirschembaum from the University of Maryland. I actually teach in an English department, one of a couple of English profs here, and I think several of us are involved in the Preserving Virtual Worlds project that Maryland is doing with Stanford and RIT and Illinois. And really my field is something called digital humanities, so the application of new media to old subjects.
Great. What excites you about the current metaverse technology?
I remember when I was really glad to hear Tony Parisi yesterday. I remember seeing VRML back in, it must have been 97, 98, and it was just about the coolest thing I had ever seen. And what's exciting to me about the metaverse is that it seems like we've finally taken a couple of steps forward. There we are.
What concerns do you have about the current metaverse technology?
The balkanization of different applications, so I want seamless integration into my web browser. People have mentioned phones, and I want to be able to migrate identities across different platforms, different applications. My email login, the avatar that I use on various bulletin boards. It would be really like to see all of that rolled into one identity.
What do you think is going to be the most surprising impact of metaverse technology over the next decade if your horizon goes out that far?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to make general predictions like that. I mean, I try to think about my own field of literary studies, and in some ways that's so far from what I do now, but I look around at my colleagues in the English department, many of whom are traditional critics, theorists of literature and literary history, and I try to imagine what they're going to do to this stuff. What does an English professor do with virtual worlds? And I think one direction you can go is sort of Hamlet on the holodeck stuff, and what if you could walk around inside of a Jane Austen novel. That's kind of interesting. It's not, I don't know that it's that interesting. Part of what I would like to see is kind of a rethinking of what literature is in this environment. You know, Second Life and other virtual worlds, they're overwhelmingly visual. You know, they're so graphically lush and rich. So what happens to the word? I think text technology is still very crude. You get your little chat window in Second Life, and you get note cards that pop up, and the contrast to the visual backdrop, the landscape of the world is so jarring. So I'd really be interested to see what happens with the alphabetic word in a virtual world, and whether we can sort of push that a little bit further than it's been pushed.
Do you see circling back to oral forms of language?
Possibly. I mean, I think certainly oral storytelling is already important in Second Life, but what happens when you can walk around inside of a text, when a text becomes a landscape, and you unbind the book and you start thinking about what happens to narrative when, again, you can not just immerse yourself in a kind of scene, but when you can immerse yourself in a text and interact with text on a kind of human avatar scale.
Last question. What barriers do you think metaverse technology will never overcome?
Never overcome. Well, I think you know, the predictable ones. I'm not sure that I could offer anything anyone else hasn't said. Copyright, security, surveillance, bandwidth, all of those things. I don't think we're going to solve any of those anytime soon. From my own particular interest, preservation. It's not so much a barrier as a challenge, but we're not going to figure it out on a 2-year grant.